Oh, hi there. I'm Zach.
Oh, and I'm Jennifer. And this is episode 553 of the Lawyerist Podcast, part of the Legal Talk Network. And today, this guy, Zach Glazer, is talking with Catherine Sanders Reach about streamlining your legal operations.
This is one of those where we would get, if this was a TV show, it'd be previously.
It would be previously.
Lawyerist.
Because we had her on like 100 episodes ago or something like that?
Something like that. Yeah,
Okay.
Episode 444, which should be easy enough to remember. Thankfully, we were smart enough to put it on a memorable episode, but it was a pretty popular one. Catherine's got a lot of good information. She's part of the North Carolina bar, and she helps people over there run their law practices.
Cool.
She's somebody that when I was still writing on my own for Tech for Lawyers, I would actually check her blog before I'd write my own blog post. So she has a lot of good practical information.
Plagiarize? Is that 100%. What you did? Oh, okay, cool.
No, I would repost her blog on
back in blog days.
Yeah, back in blog days. So, but today we're talking about project management and like getting things done in your office. So she's very good at that for lawyers because it's, we weren't taught how to do any of that stuff. No. And I'm still learning a ton about project management right now.
Yeah. I'm not a lawyer, but I was also not taught it in any of my musical theater schooling. Weirdly, not a class I took.
I do see the direct line from musical theater school to
do you?
Here, right here.
to this podcast intro, maybe.
To this
the rest of my life, I'm not sure. But this might be where my degree is getting the most use is in the podcast intros. But,
absolutely.
But yeah, project management. Here's you and I were talking about this. I like to document my processes. I like to build the processes.
Yeah.
I like to analyze the data. I like to do all the framework and structure around it. When it comes to doing the actual processes, that's where I'm less interested in. And I think that is not talked about enough.
I don't think it's uncommon because for me, that's actually what got me into legal technology. Is that I like building the machine as opposed to running the machine. And it is, I don't want to say it's stigmatized, but like we don't think of that a lot of times as work.
I know, which is weird.
And we don't think of it as productivity. But it's a talent. It takes, and I don't want to say it's a talent over something else, but it takes a kind of certain mindset. And it's taken me a while to recognize that other people don't want to do that.
I know. But
there are people that want to just run the machine, which is great. And that's how their brain works. That's how they like to say, okay, well, what are the processes? Let's do it. And that's awesome. So this thing, and I've talked to we have, that we have internal business coaches.
I do know.
I hope the people on the podcast know that because we've had them on a couple times, our 3 different ones that we have. I talked to mine about feeling like that's a luxury sometimes. Like I feel gluttonous being able to like design the processes and write them down and put them in spreadsheets and do a video. And honestly, I'll do a video and throw it into like Chat GPT or something and say like, give me a process for this. Like it feels decadent.
Yeah. Like it's extra. Like you're doing like, if you have extra time, you could be doing these luxurious tasks, but otherwise just keep your head down, do the internal work instead of the processes. But the way we teach about building your workflows first and building your processes first, it is the exact opposite mind frame. It's not a luxury. It's the foundation. It's like saying the people who built your house, that doesn't count. You doing your dishes every day is the thing that really counts. And nobody's that's ridiculous.
Right. No, that's exactly right. But I think especially in a law firm, especially for lawyers, that mindset of got to get something done, got to bill these hours, I've got to be able to, what can I show for my day? And you're running your law firm.
Yes.
Part of running that law firm is documenting these processes. And if it's not something you like to do, fine. Honestly, maybe somebody in your office loves to do that.
Yeah.
But people think differently. Like it's not a luxury for some people. It doesn't feel gluttonous and amazing. And just because it does to me doesn't mean that work doesn't have value.
Right. And if it comes easy to you, another thing that often people discredit is when something is really easy for them and they do it without thinking, they don't consider it work. and they don't actually realize how hard they're working because this task they're just naturally talented at. They do it really fast. When somebody who's not naturally talented at it would struggle and consider it work. So if you think about the things that you do without thinking, those are also work. Just because they take less time or they go fast for you or you do them and forget them doesn't mean they don't count. Work does not have to be arduous for it to be work.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
Well,
all right.
Here's Zach's conversation with Catherine. Wait. Before you go, let go of that steering wheel to see if your car has somehow gained the ability to autonomously steer. No, don't do that. Who wrote this? Please keep your hands on your steering wheel. And head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review if you don't mind.
Inherent in this whole thing is that somebody is going to they're just going to let Jesus take the wheel.
Don't do it. Drive your car, keep your hands on, and here's Zach.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Catherine Sanders Shreech. I'm the director of the Center for Practice Management at the North Carolina Bar Association.
Hey, Catherine. Thanks for being with me today. So we've had you on the podcast multiple times. You've been on other podcasts like New Solo and things like that many times. You're a sought after speaker in these things. We talked about previously on episode 444, legal operations. I really wanted to kind of continue that conversation a little bit. So for our listeners, if you want to dig into kind of the basics of legal ops, the people, processes, and technology, go to 444. But today, since I've got Catherine here, I want to pick your brain about how do we incorporate artificial intelligence into that kind of concept into our legal operations.
So, and I think 444, episode 444, was it in 2020-ish?
So it was right when AI was kind of like really coming out and we started playing with it. So it was more like, here's what I think I'm going to do. You know, you and I, when we were talking to people about how to do their legal tech stack, we're really just still in like, all right, start from your processes. Just start from your process. Start from your process. We weren't getting this, hey, Zach, I want to use artificial intelligence in my office. How do I do it? And then having to reframe that question so much.
I guess one of the things with the Gen AI is we've got these foundational models, the big models, the Ask Chat GPT, Ask Claude, and while I do find those tools useful, the tools that I find most useful are the ones that are purpose-built to do a thing. And so that's going back to where are my processes breaking down? Where are my processes inefficient? And for instance, we have long had the ability to turn a Word document into a template that's fillable. Expand that to practically any practice management application that has the ability to create a mail merge with the information that you've input into the system and fill out your engagement agreement or your non-engagement agreement or your closing or whatever. And we have not seen widespread adoption of these basic and fundamental tools. Well, now we've got tools that are using generative artificial intelligence to identify variables, to identify content that you've already got, to potentially fill out clauses and things like that. So the argument for not using those tools, I think, was the time commitment to get it set up.
Potentially, yeah.
And so if Gen AI can help you get those things set up faster because it's helping you identify things, or it's turning that document into a client interview that is easier for your clients to fill out and feels more personal. Because, I mean, how many times have you seen an intake sheet that somebody sends as a Word document? And that's just not the way to do business anymore. For one thing, the information you gather is going to have to be re-input into some system, unless you're printing it out and then retyping it somewhere else at some point. So thinking about just the flow of information coming into the office and back out of the office, and how can you use Gen AI tools to kind of leverage those things so that you're not retyping and recreating and all of that. There are certain tools that come to mind right off the top of my head, and I've had people say, "Oh, they're so expensive." Okay, this is where we start getting mathy, right? And I'm doing a program at Texture on return on investment on technology, so I've been thinking a lot about this lately.
Ooh, I like that. I'm gonna go to that.
So if you think about, okay, how much time can I really save improving this process using generative artificial intelligence? Is it going to save me time? If so, how much? How much do I bill by the hour? Even if you don't bill by the hour, you have probably valued an hour of your time at something.
Or you should. Yeah, you should.
Right.
You should have an idea.
Right. So I just got Copilot, the Microsoft 365 add-on that's about $30 a month.
Yeah, it's way more reasonable than I expected, honestly.
Compared to the business standard version of 365, which costs $12.50, $30 additional sounds really extreme. So I started challenging myself, okay, let's make this thing pay for itself.
Yeah.
So how do I do that? Okay, how much time did I save today by using this tool? And how much does that equate to my hourly billable? And what I first realized is at $360 a year, that's $1 a day, more or less.
Okay.
So all of a sudden that becomes, oh, it's really not that expensive if you think of it that way.
Right.
Then you think about, did I save at least $1 a day using this tool, which if it can help me write an email that is more elegant than what I might have written otherwise or struggled to write eloquently because I'm trying to convey information that is not always easy to get across without context. And so you want to make sure that that email is perfect.
That feels like a normal lawyer email, right?
Correct. So then you think, okay, if it can summarize my emails from yesterday and tell me any things that I need to, respond to. The other day, I was going to go give a CLE at one of the county bar associations, and I let it tell me where I was supposed to be, when I was supposed to be there, who I'd talked to, what documents I had sent over. It gave me an encapsulation of stuff. Would it have taken me more than 6 to 7 minutes to gather that stuff from my inbox and my file explorer and all that stuff? No, it wouldn't have taken me that much time, but it would have taken me more than 20 seconds.
What I want to do is back up just a little bit on that, because I think like we're jumping into the things that you've found that artificial intelligence has been beneficial for. But what I think people might miss in this is that you are a processes person. You have your processes written down. And when you suggest, hey, go look at your intake, go find these documents, you need to have those documents documented, or the fact that you're even making this. Like I like to use Visio because it's in the Microsoft 365 environment, but you can use various things, Miro boards or whatever. And I make flowcharts of how things go through, like how my processes are. And when I was practicing, I would always make a document green. So like whenever a document was being made, that box or whatever it was green, because green meant money. Because green means that I can speed up this process. I can do something faster here. And so when you are using artificial intelligence to do that process, we're still talking about that process. It's still that process. It's just enhancing that process. It's not doing anything really new.
Not until we have really good agentic tools do I think that we're going to get rid of human beings in any real sense. And so far, the agentics require so much babysitting that I would just rather let someone who knows what they're doing do it.
Well, all right. Let's for people that don't know, we've got LLMs, the large language models, the generative AI, and then we've got agentic AI. So, like, what's agentic AI for people that don't know?
So, an agentic AI is something that actually reasons through and carries out actual steps. So you say, do this process. And it actually goes through and does that thing. And from what I understand, it spends so much time asking you if what it's doing is okay. Or on the flip side, I've read about where it didn't ask if it was okay and charged your credit card. So, I think we're pretty early days on this stuff. But it's funny because there was a tool back in 2020. It's disappeared since then, X.AI. It was an agentic tool. You could choose either Amy or Andrew. And so if you emailed me and said, hey, do you have time to be a guest on the podcast? And I'd say, let's let Amy, my assistant, help figure that out. You'd CC Amy at XAI, or you could buy your own domain and give it, your domain email. And Amy, the agentic bot, would communicate with you directly to establish availability, knowing what was on my calendar, and book the time with us. That was a very specific use case that worked amazingly well. And that was a long time ago. And so now we've kind of fast forwarded it into watching these, like ChatGPT reason through something. But I'm still kind of, it's helpful, but it's not perfect. And it doesn't, it gives you a rough draft. I also find the more you use it, the more it writes like itself and not you. The tools that I like the most are the ones that are specifically good at doing something. So you talk about documenting processes. Right. There is a Gen AI tool called Guide. It's GUIDDE. And you can record your screen, just do what you do. Because what I find is, you ask about law firms, have they documented their processes? No. Okay, so you go do what you do.
Right. The answer is always no.
Right. Guide will record it. It will turn it into a actual little video. It will also turn it into a step-by-step manual. It'll say, go here, do this, do this. It adds annotations to the screen with mouse clicks and all that kind of stuff. And you can go back and edit it in terms of just making it super, super easy, not only to record a process, but also to share it. And then for people who like to watch videos, you can watch the video. For people who like to have that step-by-step screenshot instruction, it does all of that.
Now we're getting into what I like to think about when someone says, hey, Zach, how can I use AI in my office? Is to enhance a thing you're already doing. We all kind of have this, at least, idea that, some people want to watch a video, some people want to read it, some people want to listen or whatever it is. And now, as I'm creating this process, I can set it up to whichever way that people in my office, deal with it for all of them. Not just like, hey, what's the consensus here, y'all? Does everybody want a video or does everybody want it written out? No, it's give all of it to you. But that's, we're talking about grabbing a tool that is purpose-built and enhancing what we do.
A lot of people I've been talking to are using Loom, which creates the video. And then there's also a tool called Scribe, which creates the step-by-step screenshots. Guide does both.
Right.
So you're you don't have to figure out which one people prefer. They just can use this one tool to do all of it, that's when you start measuring which thing does the most effectively and saves me the most amount of time. The barriers to documenting your processes have all of a sudden become significantly reduced just by having these tools on the market that make it easier to do that. And that's where you have to figure out what is it that I'm not getting done? What is it that I can definitely see improvement? There's a lot of transcription tools now on the market where you would have, the AI bot sit in on your Teams call or your Zoom call. And I always feel it a bit disconcerting to have
just a little Zach's robot in the corner.
So there's a tool that I like called Tactic. It's TACTIQ. And you don't have to invite it to your video conference. You can upload the file to Tactic and it creates a transcript and does all the, summaries, action items, all those kinds of things. And I have an attorney who is has low visibility, and so she records all of her client conversations, and they know that. And then she wanted to create transcripts, and so she's been using that tool, and she's really excited about it.
What I think people might struggle with is this idea of being able to kind of dream around those processes. What am I missing? What else could I be doing? How could people potentially be, or how would you suggest people kind of keep track of that? Like what's my day-to-day stuff that I'm not capturing, I'm not able to do because I don't have the time, I don't have the capacity, I don't have the workforce?
I usually suggest doing a needs assessment across the office and asking everybody, how do you do these essential things? So if you know that your conflicts check involves sending out a blast email to everybody and asking if anybody knows if there's a conflict, that process could probably be improved.
Okay.
And you could use an AI search tool to search across your internal repository. And that may be something that's built into your law practice management system to give it better capabilities of getting into the information that you've already input into the system to learn more about potential conflicts. Because I think there's 7 different ethics rules regarding conflicts. So it's a very sophisticated, complex process to check for conflicts.
Yeah.
And so you've got 7 attorneys in the office, 6 paralegals, and you send out an email and, 90% respond, and you figure it's okay for the other ones that didn't, but that could be a problem.
That could be the one. Yeah.
Right. Is there a way to leverage AI to attack or address the missing pieces by looking through the existing data, which kind of gets us to the conversation about knowledge management, where I see that Gen AI has a real potential to improve our knowledge management in a law office. Do I think that we've got the tools that are available and at a cost that is something that could be implemented in silos and small firms? Not quite yet. But I think we're going to get there. Those are the kinds of things where, where do our processes break down? Ask people what drives you crazy? Because I guarantee you they have an answer. We're not asking you for any other reason than to look at how can we improve this. I know that I talk to associate. I've been talking to a lot of partners who are telling me all sorts of things about their lazy associates. This generation, and I'm deferential and sympathetic. On the other hand, I'm thinking, and we talk about it, I'm like, well, how are you assigning tasks to people?
Yeah.
Well, I email them, or I leave them a voicemail message, or I put a Post-it note on, or drop by their desk. And I'm thinking, and they've got 2 or 3 attorneys all giving them tasks to do. There's no follow through. They don't even remember what they've asked until it's too late. And I feel like tools like Microsoft Copilot combined with Teams with Planner inserted, so it's not just one thing. And I don't think Gen AI is going to just it's not going to fix any of this stuff.
Right. That's one of the big things that we've seen become exacerbated or whatever as we've gotten more mobile. I know that. So, in my office, I could step out of my office and I could look around and I could see people sitting in front of the computer, typing, doing something, or on the phone or whatever. And I think, okay, everybody's doing something. Great. They could be on Facebook. They could be fake typing into the computer. And I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I felt comfortable. I wasn't actually managing people. And I think a lot of this comes back to, your process management is actually people management. If you've got processes, then you can see who's overloaded, who's underloaded. I don't know. I mean, maybe you didn't give any assignments to, Jamie attorney for 30 days or something. Yeah, maybe they are lazy. Sure. But find out, like actually manage them.
Yeah. It's never been about seeing that someone's working. You have to have evidence of them working. And that's really the only thing that matters.
That's exactly right. And I want to be very clear here that at no point do I think that, like keystroke managers, anything, like, it's not about were they butt in seat. It's about, did they get the thing that you paid them to get done? That's it.
And
Are they
some
hitting their
people
numbers?
are going to be able to leverage the Gen AI tools to
Yeah.
get things done faster. So I will tell you, and I don't know if any of my management will ever hear this podcast, so I'll wrap myself out. I have to come up with titles and descriptions for programs all the time.
Yeah.
I don't struggle to write those anymore. I put in, write a title and description for a CLE program that includes the following, bullet points of what we're going to talk about, and it spits out something. And I don't sit there and focus on wordsmithing something that in the grand scheme of things is not a make or break.
Actually, I think that's a really good example, because I write or edit or deal with a lot of articles like you do, blog posts, things like that.
Mhm.
And I used to go through and write 10 potential titles for every one of the blog posts. And it would take me, it'd take me 10 minutes at least. Now I actually can go into the Copilot in the system, go over to the side, the Copilot, and go, give me 10 titles for this. I'll generally say 20 because it's not as good. And then I'll pick my favorite 10.
Mhm.
And then somebody else picks their favorite one. That takes me a minute instead of potentially 10. It's important. It has to get done, but it's not massively important. But I like that as an example, because I want to reiterate that process was already being done. And if somebody had said, hey, Zach, how should I use artificial intelligence to do something in my office? I don't know that you do that process. I don't know that you do something like that, but it's something that saves me at least the price of Copilot every month.
When I was a puppy, and my first boss, his name is David Whelan, and he's a genius. He's now at University of Chicago. But David said I was stressing over a project and it was taking me way too long. And he said, no win is good enough. And I have held to that every day. There are things where perfection is the only standard, but there are so many things where it is not.
That's a very, very good point on using artificial intelligence in our offices, because if you're writing a brief and you're going to submit it to court, you need to know whether or not the sites are correct. And relying on, just kind of stupidly relying on artificial intelligence to write that for you is dumb. I'm writing an email to, I don't know, my staff or whatever, and I just want to I want to reiterate something. I can have artificial intelligence likely write a good deal of that.
And I'm thinking, I wouldn't necessarily trust the Gen AI to write a contract at this point, knowing that I saw a big malpractice suit against not one but two firms, and the point of contention in the contract language was literally the pluralization of a word. So for that, I'm not thinking that I want to trust Gen AI.
No.
On the other hand, to help me review tone on an email, to summarize my day, to identify, let's see, what else do I use it for? Oh my gosh, because I do write blog posts, I don't have to subscribe to Adobe stock anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Because I get Windows, and I just, because it's built into the Copilot, I just use Microsoft Designer to create custom images to go with my blog posts and social media posts, because people will pay more attention. For marketing purposes, this stuff is golden.
Yeah. Sometimes it's more about quantity, or just getting the dang thing out there, getting it out into the world. Yeah, I want an image that's going to strike people, but like, it doesn't have to be Basquiat. It doesn't have to be absolutely amazing, and really, like, nobody's coming to it for that image. Yeah, that's.
And also looking at things that you haven't done for law practice management. There's the law practice management aspect, not the practice of law, but managing your practice.
Right.
I got it to write a WISP, a written information security policy.
Thank you for defining that for our audience, by the way.
Of course. So we used to call them incident response plans. An incident response plan is part of your written information security policy. I had a young lawyer come to one of my programs, and then she emailed me later and she said, I'm so excited about using some of these tools. I'm using OneNote to take all my notes on my iPad, but my boss says that I need to send the notes from OneNote from my iPad through the VPN into the server. And I said, well, you have 365, right? And she said, yeah. And so we talked about it, and I wrote her boss a little memo about why what she was doing was okay. But I also said, if you have a mobile device policy and a bring your own policy, then this can be incorporated because it's her responsibility to make sure that she's got a, protection on her iPad, that the apps are up to date, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so the memo got a lot longer than I anticipated when I was really thinking out the firm's responsibilities, the individual's responsibilities, where it came with their policy and advice and all of that. But those are the kinds of things where you can get a lot of help. The other day, I got it to generate a spreadsheet for me. I just wanted a spreadsheet to help track spend on different technology tools. So what is it? How much does it cost per month or per year? How many people are using it? All that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Went into ChatGPT, told it all the things I wanted it to do, and it spit me out an Excel spreadsheet.
I love instances like that where it's like, I wouldn't have done that. Without artificial intelligence, I just wouldn't have done that thing. It would have taken too much time.
The very act of getting it started is you just don't ever have time to do it.
No.
So come up with a list of all the policies and things that you should have, and start asking the AI to do it for you. This isn't client work.
No.
This is stuff to help manage your firm. And if you can get a good start on it versus me Googling, looking for somebody else's example, because this is something we used to do all the time. We would Google for an example. In North Carolina, we call them go-bys. For a lot of the law practice management and law office policies and procedures, there may not be a go-by.
Right.
So you can get it generated if you, again, as a starting point. It's probably not going to be perfect right out of the bat, but it's going to be a lot more. It's something versus nothing, which I call the blank page syndrome. It's so intimidating to just get started sometimes that it just makes it easier to get a first draft so that you can, work on it.
I really love the meta aspect of this right now, of like, you use artificial intelligence to help you document your damn procedures and then go into those procedures and figure out where you can, utilize some of these tools to do specific things.
We have so many attorneys who don't actually enter their own time into the system. So they have a time and billing system. They don't enter it. They keep a spreadsheet, or, they handwrite it, or keep a notebook and then hand over their notebook. But some support person puts all this into the system, and then they have to send it back for review.
Yeah.
And then the pre-bill goes out, and then somebody finally takes the time to look at it, goes, no, that's not right. That's, and in a perfect world, we would have people enter their own time, and we would have standardized ways of describing what we do so that we know that the client's not going to write it off. This is after trial and error of knowing that certain clients are always going to write off or ask for a write down on some activity because of the way we described it, or it's too vague, or it's too specific, or whatever. So you can develop a shared list of how we describe certain actions that can be incorporated into the system so that it's just a drop down. None of that's going to happen if the methodology starts with, I'm handing someone my timesheets, however it is I keep track of them. You're never going to be able to use that stuff very effectively. Anyway, the other part of this is that there are now Gen AI tools that sit in the background and track your time for you.
Yeah.
So the part of tracking time becomes much easier. Again, not looking for perfection. It's still going to have to be reviewed, but let's get the humans out of the mix.
That right there, the not looking for perfection, because I think a lot of people, they go, well, the tool's not going to do it right. Well, you're not doing it right.
Right.
The tool's not going to capture all my time. You're not capturing shit. You're coming in on a Friday and going, what did I do this week? And you're going to your email and you're like, who did I email?
Uh-huh.
So
Absolutely.
At least this gives you a starting point, or gives somebody else a starting point, and then they can send you something to edit. And we took at least one person out of this process.
I remember having a conversation with an attorney who this was a while back, but he asked me if I knew where to get a pedal. And I was like, a pedal? This was for transcribing his dictated notes. And it was the pedal that the assistant would use to stop and start the recording as she was physically transcribing the notes. And I said, there's a lot of tools on the market now where you can dictate into your device and it transcribes that automatically for you. There's even third-party services that you can send to have it perfect if you want it perfect. Is this really a good use of your assistant's time? And he sat there for a second and he said, yeah.
Oh man. But theoretically, at least he's making an active decision there, instead of like, well, I didn't realize that I could just talk into my iPhone and then have that turned into, like that's what's amazing to me right now. My father started out practicing and we did, dictate a bunch of things. And then I come into the practice and I'm like, what are you doing, old man? And we get away from that. And now it's like, you could probably dictate a lot of stuff now. It's so neat that we're coming around to that again.
Well, and the thing is, it's built into Word. You can dictate directly into Word,
right into
and
the
you
system.
Can see it talking. Oh, I broke my right wrist in 2021. I had to mouse and type with one hand, and obviously not very good at that, especially because it's my non-dominant hand. And that's when I found out, Word dictation is amazingly good, because I looked at how much it costs to purchase Dragon. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was like, this is cost prohibitive, especially for the amount of time I actually am going to need it. There's a lot of stuff already in your technology stack that you're not using.
That topic is a whole separate podcast. You and I could go off on that and keeping yourself up to date, making sure that you are using the things. But I think that still comes from the idea of know what it is you do, and then grab these tools as you see fit that are purpose built to help enhance what you already do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could obviously wax philosophical on this with you for a while, but we do need to wrap up. If you have one tool that you could tell people, and I hate giving people this because it is answering the question of how should I use AI in my firm. If there's one tool that you're playing with right now, what are you playing with, and how's it doing?
Well, as I mentioned, I did just get Microsoft Copilot. Two things that it does that are just huge time savers for me. And this is not going to be every practice, but I do a lot of PowerPoint presentations. It takes hours to build an attractive presentation.
Oh yeah.
And if you're doing a CLE, which is a great way to get exposure for your practice and, share your expertise and all that kind of stuff, you're already going to have to write a paper.
Yeah.
Write your paper, write your outline, upload it into PowerPoint, and let it generate an attractive PowerPoint presentation for you. It saves me hours of time.
Now, it might not be time prohibitive for somebody to participate in the CLEs, to give CLEs. I love that. That opens up a potential marketing area for our listeners.
And then the other thing that I spend way too much time doing is I put out a newsletter every week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's not a sophisticated newsletter, but I go through and I find 5 or 6 articles that I think are really worth people reading. And this could be for your clients too. And then I would get the link, and then I would write a little description of the articles, and then I would edit it, and then I would review it, and then I would run it through spell check and the grammar edit, all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And it would take me 2-3 hours to write a really short newsletter just because, again, perfect being the enemy of the good, and all I wanted it to be really good if you're going to send it to 1,000 people. So last week, I went through, found the articles that I was interested in, got the title, got the link, thought, I'll ask ChatGPT or I'll ask Copilot what it can do. I said, can you write a short, 2-3 summary of each of the articles that are linked to in this document?
That's
10
awesome.
seconds. And I was like, I feel guilty. But then I have to think, I already did the curation. I already made the determination that these are the right pieces of content to be sending out. Do I really need to spend a bunch of time writing annotations for them?
The value you're providing isn't the annotation, isn't the 3 sentences. It's hey, honestly, I think you should look at all of these articles. So go look at all of the articles. It doesn't matter with the annotation. Yeah, that's amazing. I like that. I like both of those a lot.
It's a huge time saver.
Yeah, we'll end on that. Thank you once again for sharing your expertise with our audience here. I hope this is coming out after Tech Show. I hope everybody listening was able to get to your talk at Tech Show on calculating ROI for technology spend in your law firm. I know I'm going to be there. I guess this is going to be weird because I'm saying this in future tense, but it's, when it comes out, it's going to be past tense. So I will have been there or what have you. But thank you for sharing with our audience.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me, Lawyerist.